Alright, hi, welcome to this video. We are going to cover the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, and we are going to do a close reading of the narrative. We know that this is a autobiography. Frederick Douglass was a former slave, and he was able to escape and educate himself. He taught himself how to read and write, and this is the book that he published once he escaped and did all the wonderful things that he did throughout his life. This narrative just details his life. And so with a close reading, we want to, I'm just going to annotate as we go along. The close reading is going to help you to kind of comprehend and dig deeper into the text. Okay, so let's just start reading here in chapter 1. It says, I was born in Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough, and about 12 miles from Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. So let's just stop for a second, because authentic may be a word that might not be familiar with. Let's keep reading. By far the larger part of the slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs, and it is the wish of most masters within my knowledge to keep their slaves thus ignorant. Now, we could pause here and go back. The first, with close reading, you actually do multiple readings. The first time you read through, you are basically just reading the text to get understanding about what it's about. Just what is the gist of this story about? And we're only reading chapter 1. And the second, and as you go through the first time, you're underlining words that you might not be familiar with. You're also and maybe even highlighting phrases that you don't know. You're not really sure what the author is saying there, so you may highlight that phrase, but you keep reading. Then you're going to reread it. You're going to read a second time, and we're going to go back and we're going to address everything that we annotated. So I'm so sorry. I should have said that at the beginning before I started reading. Let's go back to by far, let's start here. By far the larger part of the slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs, and it is the wish of most masters within my knowledge to keep their slaves thus ignorant. I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. So I feel like that is significant. So let's do a highlight there where he says, I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell, I did that so backwards, a slave who could tell of his birthday. Okay, this I'm going to shade all that in. That seems really important to highlight. They seldom come nearer to it than planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime, or fall time. Oh wait, let's go ahead and highlight that part too. Because what is he talking about here? Harvest time, cherry time, fall time. That sounds like, I guess, planting. If you're gardening, you would know about harvest time and cherry time. So we'll put that there. Okay. A want of information concerning my own was a source of unhappiness to me, even during childhood. The white children could tell their ages. I could not tell why I ought to be, hold on a second guys, I'm trying to tell their ages. I could not tell why I ought to be deprived of the same privilege. I was not allowed to make any inquiries of my master concerning it. he deemed all such inquiries on the part of a slave improper and impertinent. Okay, so that seems like a word that might need to underline. Impertinent. Okay. And evidence of a restless spirit. So what do you think he means there? A restless spirit. Let's highlight that, because evidence of a restless spirit, what does that mean? Okay. The nearest estimate I can give makes me now between 27 and 28 years of age. I come to this from hearing my master say sometime during 1835 I was about 17 years old. Okay, that's the first paragraph. Okay, so we're going to stop there. There we go. Because this is just driving me crazy, the thickness of this pen. Okay. And now let's go back. So you read it the first time just to get the gist of what's going on. So in this first paragraph, we see that the author, Mr. Douglas, is explaining about the lack of his age, the lack of knowing his actual birthday, right? And he tells us, that he wanted to know that information, of course, because we all want to know our birthday, our actual birthday. But he was deprived of the privilege, right? As most slaves were, deprived of the privilege of knowing their actual birthday. So let's go back up to these highlights and underlines that we have. So the first word we have underlined is authentic. So let's go back and read that sentence again. I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. So what do we think authentic means? What is authentic? We can say, using context clues, maybe this word could really mean, oh, my chicken scratch, like accurate. Wait, that's not gonna work. My chicken scratch is not gonna work. But we can say that this word would mean accurate means authentic. It would mean I want to insert. I want to do an insert right there, and I can't. I can't do an insert. And you're not gonna be able to read my chicken scratch, but I think we can say, oh, this looks awful. Accurate. Alright, I'll have to come back and clean that up. Okay, so we can keep going. By far the larger part of slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs. And that's that he's doing a comparison there between slaves and horses, right? And so saying how they both were considered property. And so you, as a horse, wouldn't know its age. A slave wouldn't know their age. And it's the wish of most masters, within my knowledge, to keep slaves thus ignorant. So we find out from his perspective, from his point of view, that it is the wish of most masters, meaning that they don't know their ages, and that's how they want to keep it. I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. So this is something that is common. We could write that down. He's never met anyone else that knew their birthday. So this is just a common, oh my goodness. Okay, so this is something that's common. They seldom come nearer to it than planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime, or fall time. So these sound like seasons, right? So we got spring and we got fall. So cherry and planting could be, okay, cherry time. When are cherries normally ready for picking? So planting time. So we can kind of, through context clues, we can kind of deduct that this means seasons. So basically a slave would more or less know the season that they were born based off of what was being planted, what was going on at that time, right? Springtime, we can visualize what happens in springtime, right? The flowers are coming out and the weather changes. Same thing about fall time. Weather's changing. The leaves are falling on the ground. So those were the markers of time that a slave would use to know his or her birthday. Okay. So we read on, and we also have, it says, a want of information concerning my own was a source of unhappiness to me, even during childhood. So remember, Mr. Douglas is an adult writing this textbook, I mean, not textbook, writing his narrative, and he's sharing his source of unhappiness. So when you're doing close reading, you're thinking about context also, like what is happening during this time period, during this time frame, so that we can also have more understanding about what motivated the author to write the text. So just published this book in 1845, and Garrison was his publisher. So that kind of gives us a little context too, about, well, situating this in history. We know that slavery was abolished in 1865, so that's when Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So by him publishing this in 1845, that's 20 years before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So this tale would be very important and impactful for the day, for the people who were reading this novel. It would be very impactful because at this time that this novel was published, slavery was still very much legal in several states, and a lot of people were still in slavery during this time.